And we're live. Good morning, everybody. Congratulations, you made it through the week. It's Friday. Pull up a
Right.
chair and join us. We're really happy to be here. My name is Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group. And if you've attended any of these chats, right now you're going, all right, excellent. Because Jose Sabal with Sabal Food Safety Consulting is joining us today. Jose, my friend, how are you doing today?
Oh my goodness, Brian. Wonderful. Wonderful. This has been a very nice week of kind of summarizing what I recently saw, which is going to be the purpose of our conversation today.
Uh-huh. And if you're new to the chat, one of the things that you'll notice here is with this is exactly what it says. This is a chat about food safety. This is not a presentation. This is not us lecturing you on a particular topic. This is a conversation. And man, we got a ton of stuff to cover today. So one of the traditions we like to do here on the show is in the comments to get things going, because this is a community and you'll notice that people love talking to each other here, is let us know where you're at in the world. I am in Loveland, Colorado. And Jose, where are you at today?
I'm in Miramar, in Florida. We're kind of close to Fort Lauderdale and Miami.
Nice, nice. And how's the weather? Beautiful, I assume?
Oh my goodness, beautiful. You have no idea. But it's hot already, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. Denver this week, Colorado, gorgeous weather. So I think it's supposed to be like in the low 70s here today through the weekend, low chance of rain. So everything is starting to green up outside. The trees are just kind of starting to get their leaves. So it's beautiful out there. So as Austin's been traveling a lot. If you know Austin with Sage Media. So it looks like he's back home. So good. So hopefully Austin will be able to enjoy the weather as well. So kind of on that topic of traveling, that's one of our topics for today. But one of the things and one of the traditions we have here on the Food Safety Chat is join Jose and I for a ceremonial drink with us. And this is a company I used to work for, Boulder Brands. So they did like Evol burritos and Smart Balance margarine and stuff like that. Allie's here. Nice. Yeah. The tea's looking good today. I've actually got an energy drink in here.
Today? Yeah, really?
Yeah. So I'm mixing it up. So yeah, it's based. So it's a caffeinated energy drink, of course, and it's from a company called Yerba that is in Costco right now, and so they're using yerba mate as their source of their caffeine in there, and they put some. So it's got a little bit of that flavor. It's got a little bit of stevia. So it's not sweet, which I like. I don't like sweet. So it's a nice drink. So if you're in Costco and they have it in your area, pick it up.
Okay.
Little weird. Here's a little divergence. A little weird thing about Costco is Costco is divided up into regions, and the buyers in the different regions in Costco are the ones who determine what goes in the stores. So headquarters in Seattle has some say over different type of national strategies, but the vast majority of things that are in the stores are picked locally. So the variance between Costco's is kind of cool. So if you travel to different areas, you'll find different things, which is always kind of fun too.
Wow.
Cheryl, good morning. Nice to see you as well. Cheryl's here every week. I'm always happy to see Cheryl's name. So shall we dive in, sir? Because we got a lot to cover. I mean, normally when we're doing the pre-show chat, we'll then type up some notes and kind of general outline of what we talk about, and it's a one-pager. But we've got so much here to cover today. It's two pages, and so when Jose and I were getting ready today, it's like, man, we got a ton to cover, and kind of I think the theme for this, and this kind of goes into your activity last week with GFSI. And I'm dating myself here, but you remember Johnny Carson, right? And his talk show? Do you remember Karnak? Where he would put on that silly hat. He was like a fortune teller. And he would guess the contents of the envelope, right? He would put it to his forehead, and it was always a joke. But that's kind of what we're doing here today. We're Jose and I we're kind of polishing off the crystal ball, and we're gazing into the future and kind of looking at things and saying, okay, what's coming down the road? Because as we all know, if you're not paying attention to what's coming, it's going to run you over. So you need to be looking out there, and you need to be paying attention to what's happening in the food safety world, because if you're just reacting to stuff, that's not going to work, right? It's the Doug Marshall and I were talking about this. It's corrective versus preventive actions. If you're going to have prevention and keep things from happening, you need to be plugged into what's going on.
Yes.
And what's going on now, and then this is really great, is people are starting to get out to conferences again. And GFSI was the conference last week, of which you were at, correct, Jose?
That is correct. Yes.
How was the attendance? Was it pretty well attended?
Oh my goodness, there was a lot of people there. A lot. The plenary room was, I mean, huge. It was in the Westin Peachtree Hotel, downtown Atlanta. And there was a lot of people. There was traffic. What can I tell you? Traffic of people.
Good. So Ali says the best Costco is Maui. Yep, I've been to that. I think I've been to that Costco. Yeah. So if you're in Hawaii, of course, then you want to scoop up all the Kona coffee, right? And so Costco is a good place to do that there. So kind of what we did is we tried to arrange our talk today and narrow it down into kind of the overall big messages. And my goodness, GFSI made some pretty big announcements and changes relative to what they're up to. So we'll start off this conversation, Jose, by reporting back on what you learned at GFSI and what are those guys focusing on?
So again, Bryan, I'm going to just kind of highlight the fact that we are somehow looking, well, not for everything. I was going to say looking into a crystal ball, but here, guys, what we're going to do is basically you're going to hear my opinion about what I heard. Okay, so don't take it 100%. You can always go online and search for whatever is going to be needed, but this is what I believe is the intention here. Yeah. So GFSI has been, it was very clear during the conference that the slogan of GFSI, Save People, Save Food for People Everywhere, is the focus of the organization. Okay. And for that reason is, and this is kind of the reason for the next topic, how you achieve that. That was the question. How can GFSI help achieving that goal? Making sure that everybody, everywhere, it doesn't matter where in the world they are going to be eating safe food. And with safe, guys, remember that it's not just safe, it's also quality food. The safety without the quality is not going anywhere.
No.
So that's more or less, Bryan, the basic approach.
Yeah, and you had mentioned too when we were preparing for the chat that they kept pretty much saying this over and over again in the presentations, right? Safe food everywhere. So it definitely became a theme for sure. And it's a good one, right? Because, I mean, even here in the US, I forget what the actual statistic is, but what is it, like 75, 80% of businesses in the US are small businesses. They're not gigantic food companies or things like this with all kinds of resources. And it's the same around the world, even more so. Small business is where a lot of things are produced.
Yep. So basically, what GFSI was saying is that they see what they call the 3 pillars in a simple, way, but they also call that strategic objectives. And there are 3 of them. Okay. The first one is harmonization and benchmarking. The second one is capability building. And the third one is public-private partnerships. Okay. So for the first one, GFSI is, and we know this for, since it was created, they are basically trying to harmonize everything for food safety. So the slogan that says, well, there is going to be, once you get certified, it's going to be accepted everywhere. That is basically the approach here. Okay. So how do you achieve that? Well, by using the GFSI benchmarking requirements. As long as everybody following exactly the same benchmarking requirements, in theory, assuming that those programs are effective, of course, in theory, the food is going to be safe for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that may change. One thing that caught my eye during the presentation, and I should say to everybody that is listening that there were presentations for each of the 3 strategic objectives, but those presentations were running at the same time. So I was not able to attend to the 3 pillars. I was just choosing the one that, seemed that is more interesting to me, and I attended. So again, be careful because I do not have all the knowledge. I was not there on each and every single presentation. But when I was attending to the presentation about how to implement this, one of the conversations was that GFSI is already having conversation with Codex Alimentarius, and the basic idea is to use the benchmarking requirements with all of the food standards of the Codex Alimentarius and all of the codes of practice that they already have in place as guidance documents. So anyone following the benchmarking requirements, producing a food that the standard has been defined by Codex Alimentarius and using all of the, for example, the principles of hygiene in Codex Alimentarius, the one that we use for GFSI, basically use the other Codex standard for all of those things. Now, that partnership is going to help a lot also with the non-certified companies, okay? Because as of right now, Bryan, everything that has been done is for people that are certified. Now, we were basically discussing just a few minutes before we started, 75% of the businesses in the United States are small businesses. You can tell that it's going to be about the same around the world, okay? So to my point, that's why GFSI starts pushing, but really pushing the global markets program. And that program is the one that goes into the next strategy or pillar, which is the capability building. Capability building is going basically focus on the global markets program. And this program is good thing for everybody, for free, for anyone around the world, free. And basically, the general idea is that free online resources for anyone around the world. So anyone that wants to produce safe food, they just can go online, look for the basic or the intermediate programs, and start from the beginning. Each of those programs are going to have the basic requirements that are basically the same benchmarking requirements that anybody has when they're certified. Now they are selected, some for the basic and then a little bit more for the intermediate. And with that, there will be something that it was called during the presentation, the recognized capability builders. I'm assuming that these are people like consultants or, we do not know, but people that somehow are going to be helping these small businesses to go through the basic or the intermediate, documenting and implementing and doing all of those things to achieve as much as possible safe food. Okay. Once that is done and the program, the company already has these basic or intermediate programs in place, there is an online self-assessment tool. So they can go through this self-assessment, which is, if you ask me, my opinion, this is just an audit. Okay. Is a very simple audit that can be done online. I believe that somehow certification bodies eventually, or these recognized capability builders, maybe it's not just consultants, maybe some people that can perform this type of audit. I don't know. But this is going to be somehow the way that GFSI is going to help people to get some sort of a not certified evaluation of their food safety system, something like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So after that, this is what is neat. Okay. GFSI is the one that is going to be measuring. The self-assessment is within the online tool that is going to be built. So another thing that is going to be part of that program is something that was called marketplace and matchmaking. So anyone that wants to purchase any product from basically around the world, I don't know if this is, feasible or not, but still, they just sign in. Let's say that I'm going to say I'm Kraft and I want to purchase some eggs. And there is a company in whatever, South Africa, that is a farm that is, growing the hens and then, dealing with the eggs and packing and shipping and so on. They are very small. If I go and register through this, what was called marketplace and matchmaking, I can find those companies that are actually in the basic or the intermediate level. And I make my decision if I can purchase from them or not. Uh-huh. It was very neat. The concept is, extremely good. And of course, assuming that those companies are achieving those steps in the right, with the right approach, with the right effectiveness and so on, at some point, they just need to go to certification and get a GFSI certification. That is more or less the structure.
Right. And so Cortland had a good comment here. Thank you, Cortland. So isn't harmonization initially going to lower the benchmark? How fast will the benchmark move up? It's taken USP 15 years to increase technology within its procedures. Yeah, but I agree. And I think, when you look at these first two pillars, so here's kind of my reflection back on what we were talking about, is number one, this is a gigantic step change for GFSI. Because in the past, GFSI creates the standard. The certification bodies benchmark, the scheme owners benchmark to the standard. Then the scheme owners work with the certification bodies to then do the audits, right? And so GFSI wasn't directly involved. This is GFSI getting directly involved in the audits. And I think what they're doing here is they asked themselves a question and they said, okay, if you're a small producer, how do we move them to understanding what they need, right? So one of the things that Jose and I were talking about when we were getting ready for this was they don't know what they don't know, right? So you're a small producer in South Africa with eggs that you want to sell, and you're a producer, right? You don't have time to go online and research all these things and figure out all these acronyms and all these type of things, and so they don't even know where to start. And they don't even see the benefit of doing it. It's like, well, I sell to my local markets and this has been the family business for 3 generations and it's fine. What GFSI is doing is providing a path forward and saying, okay, here's the things that you should be doing. And by the way, we're giving you these things for free, right? Here's all the information you need. Now you can start figuring out how this applies to you, because there was 2 main areas, right? So primary producers and manufacturers. So now these guys kind of get an understanding of this, because this is the real world. Nobody starts a company or a food business to comply with audits. Right? You're starting a food business because you want to sell something and support your family or build a bit, these type of things. That comes later. And so they don't understand that though. And as they grow, and let's say they become a little successful, now all of a sudden those giant flaws in what they're doing can kill them, right? It can destroy their business. So GFSI is reaching out to these small businesses and these small producers and saying, okay, guys, if you want to advance, here's the tools, and here they are. Yeah. So here's the path forward. Oh, and by the way, if you're successful in this, right? So carrot and stick, right? They're holding this carrot out there and saying, guess what? If you're successful in moving along this pathway, we're giving you a way to open up your market to other people that you don't even know. Ooh, yes. That's huge.
Yes. Yep. And like you said, that is a carrot.
Yeah. So now they have a reason to go through all of this work. It's just not to hang a certificate on their wall. that nobody cares about. And part of what we were talking about too is how does this benefit the scheme owners like SQF or BRC, GS or whoever, and the certification bodies? How does this benefit them? Well, GFSI is not competing with them in that way. They are providing potential new clients down the road. So now you have a small producer who goes through this voluntary program, enters the global market, their business starts growing and growing, and now all of a sudden their customers are saying, we need you to be certified. Yeah. Now they have a path forward. So that's very smart of GFSI to do this.
Yep, I mean, I agree 100% with you, Bryan, on that. Yeah. And then the third objective, the public-private partnership. I mean, it just makes sense. You know, what they are trying to do is to create an international set of benchmarking requirements. That's my personal opinion, but I believe that is the scope. So imagine, for some reason, I'm going to do some crystal ball here and some magic. Imagine that all of the requirements for anyone that is manufacturing, I mean, growing the crops or growing animals or producing, processing, whatever, storage and distribution, everyone in the food chain. Imagine that there is one international benchmarking standards. One. Everybody around the world is going to be following that. Oh my goodness, that is going to be just wonderful. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because it will make easy commerce between, you know, all the different countries, because the standards are basically the same. Not basically, they are the same. They will be the same if this happens. So making sure that there is a dialogue and trying to unify, trying to make sure that try as much as possible to make sure that this is achieved, it's going to be great. And if you ask me, what is my opinion? I hope that this is the way to go ahead, to move ahead.
Yeah. And so you give the producers the incentive, you provide them the tools to get to their next goal. Then it kind of leads into that third pillar then, right? Which is the public and private partnerships. So how do you see that?
Bryan, I believe that the third pillar is more like, if you have a unique set of benchmarking requirements around the world for each and every single country, so anyone is going to be following the same, the governments are not going to have too much trouble to recognize anything that is coming from any other country during importation. But during production and the products going out, everybody knows which are the standards. So that is going to make even easier, the transit for example, look at this one, traceability. Yeah. If we have a unique traceability approach for each and every single country, each and every single company in the world, how easy is going to be tracing food back and forth.
Right. Well, and I think this gets to Cortland's comments here as well in the chat, is teaching people these basic rules of food safety, right? It's like, okay, Mr. South African egg producer, those eggs that you're shipping out need to have a lot code. And that producer may say, well, what's a lot code? Let's show you what that is and why it's important and how this benefits your business. And oh, by the way, everybody else in the supply chain that you're selling to and your future new customers are going to want this. So you need to put this in now. And oh, by the way, here's a documented procedure on how to do it for free.
Yep. And again, Bryan, if you ask me, I will say, yes, I will do it. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that, I mean, from all of the countries in the world, this is my personal opinion, from all of the countries in the world, there will be a lot of them, that will say, I agree, do whatever it is, send me the benchmarking requirements, and we will go with that. Mm-hmm. Because it's comfortable for any health department or Ministry of Health in any country just receiving an internationally approved and recognized set of rules for food, oh my goodness, send it over. We're ready to follow whatever is there. Now, for the more developed countries, which is, the United States and Canada and Australia, New Zealand, and then European countries and so on, well, things are going to get a little bit rough. Why? Because all of these different groups of countries or individual countries, they're very proud of what they have achieved so far in food.
Yeah.
Now, that typically, I'm going to say that will make that these countries are not likely to try to join, their efforts and try to look for one. Maybe, I will say, but in my opinion, we need to be open-minded. And we need to look at the future. And maybe some of the things that are being done right now are not the best. And we need to see it like that. Actually, this morning, Bryan, just before we started, I was searching into my emails, and I have in front of me the EU regulation 2023/915 that is replacing 1881/2006. And this is for the maximum level of contaminants in chemical contaminants in food. And you know what was the first statement here? Look at this. The regulation sets the maximum levels for certain contaminants in food. That regulation has been already amended substantially many times. And since a number of new amendments are to be made to that regulation, it should be replaced. What about that? What about that lesson to the world? This is not good anymore. We need to update it.
It's a good point.
It's a good point.
Well, I mean, and even FDA, right? So these large countries with these large organizations and tons of regulatory activity, and we'll talk about that here a little later. Yeah. Even when FSMA was put in place and foreign supplier verification and these type of regulations, FDA recognized the differences between the sizes of the business, right? It's like, okay, if you're a very small business, we're going to allow you more time and we'll do this, and et cetera, et cetera. So even FDA understands that the size of the business and the level of sophistication is going to drive this. Now, it's not going to be easy for sure. I mean, of the three pillars, this one, not surprisingly, I kind of view, and we'll get your opinion on this too, Jose, is the toughest. Because a lot of times too, right, you get this right, fighting between the countries. Good example, GMO, right? Yep. So viewpoints for GMO in the US versus the EU, very different, right? Yes. And they've been fighting about that forever. US accuses Europe of using GMO regulations as a trade barrier to protect their countries. And, it goes back and forth and it doesn't really move. But I think reframing it, to your point, and using internationally recognized standards and partnering with Codex, I think is very smart. And saying, hey, listen, guys, we're all here for safe food. We can all agree on that. Yeah. Is Belgium better off with having a safer food supply or a less safe food supply? Well, yeah, of course, we need that piece. So can we reach consensus around how we're managing the safety of food for these smaller manufacturers and producers to make sure that we're protecting the public, right? We're not talking big companies here. We're talking small people who, guess what, are shipping into your countries now anyway. You just don't know it. And this helps to enhance the food safety for everyone. And this has been kind of that question that's been in the US. You hear this all the time. We do all these things, we do all these activities, and pretty much every year, the number of recalls and the number of illnesses stays the same, right? So clearly, we're not doing everything that we need to be doing because those numbers are not going down. How can we do this? This could be a good way to do that. Yep.
So going back to, and this is a brief observation, Bryan, I do believe that if people are really committed to achieve the goal, which I'm going to use, it doesn't matter what country is this, safe food for everybody, everywhere, assuming that that is the goal. And I don't think that anyone is going to be against that slogan. Okay, that makes 100% sense. So the question is now, why someone in EU is going to say FDA is wrong about GMO, and why someone in FDA is going to say in the EU this is wrong about GMO? Because I bet you that if we sit down on the table and we put the slogan on top saying we are going to sit down, we are going to agree to something that it at the end is going to be safe for consumption for everybody around the world, we can arrive to a conclusion that is going to be, because it's about science, Bryan. Whatever is nutrition, whatever is something that is going to nurture the body, whatever is going to be good for the people, for the health, and for, well, that is the same, because the people that live in Europe are Homo sapiens, and the people that live here in the United States, they're also Homo sapiens. So the nutritional values are going to be basically the same.
Exactly. Well, and I think too, for the larger companies, and maybe this will be a way that they can begin negotiations, is there are some foods that come from small producers and work their way up the chain. Think chocolate, right? Everybody loves chocolate. And cocoa, right? So produce these small producers in Africa, right? And so large chocolate companies, Barry Callebaut and Hershey's, they work with the suppliers to improve. So they're already trying to do this. But if you're able to make this more universal, because lead and cadmium in cocoa, right, is a constant pain. And it's because it comes from these small producers who are taking their pods and laying them out into sun to dry, lots of environmental exposure. Just imagine if you can improve that one supply chain.
Yep. And look at this, Bryan. So keep in mind, and I'm always saying this, I'm not a lawyer. I just love to read laws and regulations, but the laws do have the intention. And the regulations is the agency approach on how to achieve that intention. Okay, that more or less is not perfect, but that is more or less. So going back to the cocoa example that you provided, according to the US, okay, and most likely this is going to be exactly the same everywhere, we need to identify which are the hazards that are applicable on each and every single link of the supply chain. So cocoa beans, is it possible that they may have lead or cadmium? Yes. So what is the source? The farm. So that product should never leave the farm if the product is identified containing those hazards, because those hazards cannot be controlled anywhere else in the supply chain. If everybody has that in mind and you create this standardized and universal approach, and somehow there will be some testing or checking or verification or somehow something that is going to check the cocoa beans before they leave the farm to make sure that they do not have that, nothing is going to happen.
Right. Well, and I think, right, for this piece of the conversation here this morning, when you're talking with these agencies, it's like, okay, we all want safe food, right? We need to start at the beginning. Is it better to have small producers with some food safety understanding and knowledge in place, or none?
There you go. Hey, Bryan, like people say, what do you prefer, to have an employee that is not trained working for you, or having a trained employee that, well, maybe that employee decide to, move to another company, but is someone that is knowledgeable and knows how to do his or her job? Yeah,
exactly. So to kind of, right, so obviously there's a ton of unanswered questions, and Cortland's bringing up some good points here. So, right, there's lots of interactions and different pieces and moving parts, but I think GFSI has done a good job with these three pillars, right? Safe food for everyone, right? Bam, 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 hit that message. And then these three topics within this. So the harmonization and benchmarking, capability building, and then the public and private partnerships, right? Those are the three things that need to happen if this is going to be successful. So I think they're on the right path. I think they've got a good plan. I think they've figured out the landmines with how do you manage it with the existing systems, both the certification systems and the governmental systems. So I'm going to be watching this very closely for sure.
Yeah.
So the next thing on the topic that came out of this that just absolutely blew me away, Jose, was everybody is talking about artificial intelligence, right? And we hear, oh, artificial intelligence can write books and artificial intelligence can do, and it's like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Doesn't really impact me. So when you were talking about this, you saw something that, if this happens, this is going to be huge for what we do.
Yep. And that is the use of artificial intelligence, Bryan, in Dubai. It's a mandatory thing. Anyone that has a restaurant in Dubai, that company must register with what is called Food Watch. And it's an online system for determining compliance of the restaurants with Dubai's food code, the equivalent to what we have as a food code for restaurants here in the United States. Okay. So as of right now, it is my understanding that it's just for restaurants. Now, if you ask me if this is working well for them, am I, doubting that they are going to be using the same thing in the future for processors? No, they should use it.
Yeah.
It's going to be super simple. So the registration, again, it is mandatory. The platform is going to be connecting everybody. So basically, the platform is going to know this is restaurant A. Restaurant A is receiving food ingredients for their preparation from this supplier, which could be farms or could be processors. The platform knows that. Okay. Then you are going to have the customers that are eating, although that is linked because there are invoices of the people that have been paying. So if there is an issue, they can go straight from the consumer back to the restaurant, back to any of the suppliers right away. Automatically. The web page is going to tell that. This is amazing. Okay. And then
there was pest control too, right?
Pest control is going to be there. Yes, it's part of the program. And the other thing is paper-free. There will be no papers. Everything, any transaction that is being made is done online. The restaurant can go to their portal and they just check whatever are the activities that they need to do. And when the government need to check, the sanitarians and people from the government auditing and inspecting the restaurants, whatever, they're going to know there. Yeah. One thing that was there that was amazing is that every organization in the system and everybody that is using the system, including the person in charge, which is the equivalent here to what is the name of the restaurant? The guy that is there, the food safety manager?
Oh, like the person in charge or?
In restaurants here in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't recall, but there is a title for that person. Well, that person, every food establishment, all of the handlers, the platform knows who works at each and every single restaurant. All of the consultants that are helping these restaurants, all of the trainers and all of the auditors that have been inspecting or helping these companies, they all will fall into this system. Okay? Then the idea is no paperwork. Everything is going to be 100% online. And one of the most important things about this is the traceability. The traceability component, which is the basic focus of all of this, is going to be just wonderful because in matters of, I'm going to say seconds, Bryan is a computer, okay? You will know exactly who was the producer of an ingredient, who was the restaurant that was preparing the meal, and who is the consumer, the patron, I'm going to say, that went to the restaurant, ate the food, and for some reason that person got ill.
Whoa.
That is going to be automatically connected. Okay. Now, something unique, and I highlighted this portion not because it was a part of the amazing world of using AI in food safety, but just to make sure that we understand something that is being done partially well in some places, but not that well in others. And actually, Bill Marler has been talking about, hey, restaurants, vaccinate your employees against hepatitis A. So one of the responsibilities of the person in charge of these restaurants in Dubai is that he or she is responsible for checking on a daily basis every time that the food handlers are going to start working. It is the responsibility of that person to check if they are ill or not, if they have any cuts or not, every single day, every single employee. Is that an effective disease control program? Oh my goodness, it is a very effective disease control program.
Yeah, and so imagine, we're auditing in Dubai, and we're assigned to audit restaurants. So now the AI is gathering this information for me as an auditor when I go into the restaurant. It's like, reports of pest sightings are up in the restaurant. You need to check on their pest control activity. When you go in, verify the temperature coolers. We've been seeing some variance in the temperature of their coolers. It may need some maintenance, right? The possibilities here, oh my goodness, right?
And this is something that is not going to be done by a person. They are uploading the data. The software is going to tell you are not doing good because there is a trend of pest findings here. And the software is going to tell the auditors, you need to start checking on this restaurant more than other restaurants.
And imagine, so you coughed a little bit ago, right? Now imagine, right? So I'm sure everybody on our chat today is doing what I'm doing and jumping kind of to the next phase. So imagine now in the back of the house in the restaurant, there are cameras and the AI is monitoring this, right? So of course now it's like, oh my God, big brother, right? But imagine I'm working in the back of the restaurant and I cough and the AI sees that.
Potentially, yes.
Right. Or there's a camera by the hand wash thing for the employees when they come in for their shift to make sure that they're washing their hands correctly. Right. Yeah. It is continuous monitoring of everything.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing because the machine can tell you where are your risks.
Yeah. And the applications, right? So we're talking restaurants right now, but the application in the food manufacturing industry, whoa.
Huge.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Monitoring chemical usage in plants, monitoring flow, monitoring downtime of lines, linking in preventive maintenance programs. Yep. To your point, illnesses and things like this, right? So, and this has been a huge issue with what Frank Giannis has been trying to do with traceability and enhanced traceability. This all becomes automatic. So the producer produces a lot of a material. It goes in the system. It goes to different manufacturers. When that manufacturer scans that into their system as received inventory, the AI knows that already and says, okay, this manufacturer A made 50,000 pounds of this ingredient. 10,000 went to 5 different manufacturers. And that 10,000 that product went in these products at that manufacturer, which went to these everything, right? And if something happens in that chain, it can go either direction instantaneously.
Yep. Basically, imagine that someone eating at a restaurant gets sick for whatever reason. With the click of a button, and I'm getting kind of a, very simplistic approach, but with the click of a button, the software can tell you that person ate in this and this and this and these restaurants in the last week or the last 90 days or the last 20 days or whatever that is.
Yeah.
The illness of this person, according to the whatever test were being done at the, I'm going to say, hospital or something serious, matches, and I'm going to use now the whole genome sequencing with exactly that food and that restaurant. And oh my goodness, I can connect all of those things in, but I mean, like this, Bryan.
Right. So, oh my goodness. Now, so let's say I'm a food manufacturer, I'm doing my environmental monitoring and I'm doing whole genome sequencing. Now those two things are connected.
Yes. Yep.
Now the AI would say, oh, there have been reports of 3 illnesses with this particular genetic identification for this strain of Listeria reported from hospitals that were manufactured at this plant. Jose, you need to go in and check that plant.
Yep.
Wow.
Amazing, Bryan.
Right. Well, and then like restaurant scoring, right? You have in a lot of places in the US, you have like the ABCD rating system for restaurants. The AI, based upon the results of that restaurant, would automatically issue a score to that restaurant.
Yeah. And any person that is going to that restaurant can check the score of the restaurant online. So they will decide if they can go or not.
Well, I think from all right, we're talking about these things just strictly from a theoretical system standpoint and the different potentials.
Oh, this can be done.
Then it gets into the ethical side of things. Are people going to want to be monitored like this, right? And I think this kind of goes back to our earlier topic with what GFSI is looking at relative to working with governments and these public and private partnerships, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's what Dubai is doing, right? So that's a public government partnership in this aspect. So can this then become a model? Wow. This is wow.
Amazing.
So I think Cortland's ahead of us on this, right? So where y'all been? we're catching up. We're catching up to you. Wow. Oh man, just think about that, everybody. All the different potential applications. The next 5 years and what we do is going to be game changing.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen fast. Oh my goodness.
And let me tell you one thing, Bryan, in my opinion, okay? With all the knowledge that there is right now in a lot of people that are designing programs and AI and machine learning and that kind of stuff, if you say, Jose, let's say that we start right now on working towards these changes, I can easily say that as long as we have the right strategy defined from the beginning to make sure that in engineering, when you are trying to achieve something, you need to create the strategy first, because otherwise you're going to be spending money in making changes after that if you go through the wrong path. Now, does that mean that we created the strategy and the strategy is not going to have flaws? Yeah, it happened. But at least we have, we're looking at the end of the tunnel. So with that strategy, there are changes that can start being done right away. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the setting up of the necessary software online eventually in order to gather all of these data and control these, yes. And I'm going to make a quote here because I remember my very few conversation with Neil Cole from BSI in this GFSI check, cybersecurity, food defense. Oh my goodness, this is going to be, terrifying if we have a unique system and is for some reason attacked by cybersecurity.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Wow. So everybody just kind of marinate on that and think about that. Oh, the applications are endless. So the third topic, and we're getting low on time, and I definitely want to cover this, is the third topic, and this has been so right. So Bill Marler, right? Get the F out of FDA, right? So these are his T-shirts, and so Bill was very nice to send this to me. So part of this, and Bill went and testified to Congress, and there was a big report that came out called the Reagan-Udall report. And with this, this has been talked about for a long time, but I think it's starting to gain traction, which is FDA needs to be broken up. It's trying to serve two masters, the food industry and the drug medical device industry, and these two things are not the same. And the lion's share of the funding at FDA goes to the drug side of things. And FDA kind of like it's, like, a Charles Dickens street urchin, right? Coming up and, oh, may I have a little bit of food, please, sir? And, the food side has trouble. And most of the time with an FDA, the commissioner, so Dr. Califf, right? They come from that side of the business. And so that's what they understand. And food gets short shrift. And there was a recent webinar that was put up. And so, Jose, you found this, and thank you very much for showing us this, right? So Frank Yanis, Stephen Ostroff, and I forget the lady's name who was with USDA.
Mindy was?
Sounds right. So I'm going to post the link.
It's a USDA position similar to Frank's position in FDA.
Exactly. And I apologize because, I'm not that familiar with USDA, so I don't remember her name. But I'm going to post that video in the locals group. So just go to the food leadership group on locals.com and you'll find it. Yep. And or search my name. But I think because these three individuals who are extremely knowledgeable, right? They led these areas, had a very frank discussion with the moderator on food safety and FDA and the future of it. And I was very surprised, right? Spoiler here, that all three of these individuals were like, yeah, we need to break it up.
Yeah.
We need to separate FDA. There needs to be one commissioner responsible for food, one commissioner responsible for drugs and medical device. And Frank was even saying on this conversation that should be a cabinet level position.
Maybe, but why not?
And so with that, I put a poll on LinkedIn to see what the general consensus was out there with people on whether they think that FDA should be broken into two agencies. And I had over 7,000 people who viewed the poll. 332 people responded as of this time. 90%, Jose, 90% said, yes, it's long overdue. It needs to be broken up. 9% said, no, everything is fine. And 1% were like, I'm not sure to do. So 90% of the people agree that FDA should be broken up. And that was one of the things that Bill Marler was talking about on the chat recently, is that he went to testify to Congress with all kinds of experts. And he said he sat for the entire session. And he was extremely impressed with what everybody was recommending and saying and answering questions. And then he said everything was promptly ignored by FDA.
Yeah. So you know what, Bryan, in my opinion, because I know that we're kind of short in time, but in my opinion, general approach, 2011, the president signed the Food Safety Modernization Act. Okay. Again, this is law. The law only contains intentions. Mm-hmm. And it will be up to the FDA, which is the agency that was assigned with the responsibility of creating regulations against the requirements of the law in order to make sure that everybody complies with what is written in the law. Okay? Yeah. There is no real food safety modernization if we keep on using the old laws and old regulations, because they just don't work. They don't match. Now, do we need to kind of erase everything and start from scratch? No, there is a lot of things that are very good and they're working. So we keep whatever is working after checking that, of course. And mostly checking, not because it's not working, but checking with fresh eyes to see if there is a possibility to make a few changes there that will make that specific regulation that is working better than what it is, friendlier than what it is, applicable to all companies. It doesn't matter if you are the biggest one or if you are the smallest one. Yeah. Those things can be done and reorganize the program in a way that is easy to follow, because there are many things that are exactly the same for all of the companies, and there are things that are specific. So organize the food program in a way that is going to be easy for everybody to work with.
Yeah. And you know what? Dr. Ostrov made a good point in that presentation, in that, there's very few things from over 100 years ago that still apply today. And he said, actually, these regs have done a pretty good job considering how old they are.
Yeah.
But times change and things need to change. And Cortland had a comment here, and thank you for all these comments, Cortland. It's been great having you involved in the conversation. Money, money, money. Food needs to get payments into FDA to allow it to maintain its regulatory ability. Why the focus is on drugs and devices?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yep. No, I agree. So, I mean, definitely things, I think as we were preparing on this too, is these type of things don't happen gradually over time. Like with FSMA and things like this, there's step changes, right? These things, when they happen pretty quickly. And then you move to this new level. And I think we're starting to get enough momentum around this, thanks to people like Bill Marler and Frank Giannis and Stephen Ostrov and things like this, where they've been inside, they understand the mechanisms, they see the bureaucracy, they see the lack of accountability because no one's in charge. And now they're outside and they can speak freely and they can say, this doesn't work. This does not work. We need to change it. Good.
Yeah. And at the end, Bryan, what is the goal of the FDA? To protect the consumers. What is the goal in GFSI? Oh, to make sure that everybody is going to have safe food everywhere. Well, that goal is exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. It always comes back to, and of course, anything that has been around for a while grows in complexity. Right? You see this in companies and everything else. Things become more bureaucratic. Things become harder to do. The small entrepreneurial food company, if it's successful, grows into a large bureaucratic company. And these things happen over time. And it's the same with government and bureaucracies, even more so, right? So occasionally you just have to blow it up and start over. And like Frank has said, like in the infant formula issue, right? And so FDA has taken a ton of criticism over Abbott and the infant formula crisis. And, as he states, it's like Cronobacter is not a reportable incident.
Isn't that amazing?
And he was just like, what? Right. This is something that we know makes infants sick and kills them. And it's not reportable? Really? Yeah. And on the other side, I mean, there's responsibility on the food manufacturing side too. If you know this ethically, who cares if it's reportable or not? You should still report it.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, come on. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I mean, to kind of bring this back to the 30,000 foot level to close out our chat today. Oh man, this is a lot to digest. I know I'm going to be thinking about this all weekend. I mean, even, as we were going through this week, just the AI portion of it. Oh my goodness. Right. And we don't want this, just as human beings, we don't want this going in the wrong direction either, where everybody's being constantly monitored and, we have these robot overlords that are managing our very lives. Nobody wants that either. So there has to be, some type of a balance, and we'll see what that is. Right? The future is wide open on this.
Wide open.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Jose?
I'm just in shock, Bryan. From all the things that I heard in basically week and a half or so, it's just amazing. And in my opinion, I'm going to say that we should take foods in a separate scope from FDA. Yeah. That's my personal opinion. And if I can do anything to help, I'll do it.
Yep. And so here's something that was kind of rattling around in my head. Is one of the things that you see in audits, you hear this all the time, right, Jose? We hear this phrase all the time. An audit is just a snapshot.
Yeah.
Now, if you have an AI system that is constantly monitoring, that all goes away, right? It's now not just a snapshot in time, it's continuous monitoring and management.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that to everybody to kind of chew on that and think about that and the implications for our futures, for everyone, right? And I think it's good. I think it's a good thing, right? We need to embrace change and grow and become a part of it, which is why you're here on the chat.
Yeah.
So we will start again next week, Friday, with a new topic at the same time. So on Fridays on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, we go live every day on Fridays at 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Eastern. And we'll join you next week for the next food safety chat. But in the meantime, enjoy your weekend, get out in the sun, walk around without being monitored by AI, and have a great time. I know I'm going to, and I know you are, Jose, as well. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate you being here and participating in the conversation and allowing us to enter into your lives a little bit every week and help spread food safety and improve our food supply. So thank you for doing that. And we will see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.